Hey hun, I'm Chloe and this is the Figurehead Hood Ornament Figure Skater or Ice Skater tutorial. My mission is to share my passion for pole dancing and make pole dancing easy to learn and accessible. This is the 40-second video of the beginner pole trick tutorial series. In order to maximize your training out of all the videos, I highly recommend you to start from the very first video of this playlist, as the tricks will be a progression of the video before. There is just so many different trick names for this one. Figurehead, Hood Ornament, Figure Skater, Ice Skater. It's definitely my favorite freestyle trick, so we shall try it today. This video is mirrored for your ease of learning. I'll have a red wristband on my right wrist and my right ankle to indicate the right side of my body if you do get confused of the directions. This trick tutorial is created for you for information and educational purposes only, and for you to enjoy learning pole dancing from the comfort of your own home. Please participate at your own risk and don't work beyond your capability, and seek help or spotting when necessary. For any health concerns, please make sure you seek professional medical advice. Please also make sure you warm up your body before you start this video. I have a warm-up playlist depending on your level under the playlist warm-up so that you can try them before you do the tricks. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you give it a thumbs up so that I know to create more of these kinds of videos, and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet so that you are notified every single time I upload a video. If you're looking to further your pole journey in combining tricks and dance together, then consider subscribing to my online learning platform Pole Art Bowl, where we put tricks and dance together into a combo and learning an entire routine with combos and dance together. You can find the link in the description below for further information. Alrighty, without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. Alrighty, now let's get into our conditioning. For our conditioning today, we are going to do our forearm grip knee hooks. So we are going to try this together. Let's try standing on the left side of the pole on our toes. From here, inside hand comes into a forearm. So making sure that your inside hand is at shoulder height and then coming into your forearm grip. So making sure that your elbow is on the other side of the pole. Outside hand comes nice and high, and then you're going to hook your inside knee pad onto the pole. Now from there, you're just gonna lift your outside leg up to the side, and then you're gonna come back down. Now when you're doing this one, I want you to make sure that you thrust your hip all the way forward and then come into position. So once you hook your knee, try to thrust your hip all the way, and then you should be able to come into the right position. All right, so again, on your toes, make sure you're about a foot length away from the pole. Inside hand at shoulder height, elbow on the other side of the pole. So again, make sure your right hand on the pole, elbow comes onto the left side. So you make sure you look at your elbow towards the pole. Outside hand comes very high, so keeping the arms straight. Inside leg comes at hip height. You're gonna thrust your hip forward, and then outside leg comes off. Beautiful. All right, let's try one last one on that same side. Same position, outside hand high, inside leg at hip height, and then lift your leg up as you thrust your hip forward. Perfect. Well done. All right, let's try it on the other side. So you're gonna come onto your toes, a little further away from the pole. Inside hand at shoulder height, elbow comes onto the other side of the pole. Outside hand very high, inside leg at hip height. All right, from there, you're gonna kick your ankle all the way to your bum, thrust your hip forward, and then outside leg comes off. Beautiful. All right, let's try that again. Make sure you hook it nice and firm, thrusting your hip forward, and outside leg comes off. Beautiful. All right, one last one, and thrust. Good. Well done. And there is your conditioning done. Alrighty. Now, let us get into our Figurehead, Hood Ornament, Figure Skater, or Ice Skater tutorial. There are so many different names for this one. I'm not too sure why. I guess it's evolved, or like some people just name it differently. Now with this one, you can either do this on spin or static. They both work. I personally like this on spin because I think it just looks nicer. So this is what a figurehead, hood ornament, figure skater, or an ice skater look like. Now, let's start coming into our figurehead. So, we are gonna start on our toes, and then inside forearm comes just around neck height. Outside hand comes nice and high. You're gonna hook your inside knee pit onto the pole so that it's close to your inside elbow. And then from there, make sure that your knee hook is very, very tight, kicking your ankle all the way towards your bum. And then you're gonna thrust your hip, and then your elbow comes off, and then you're gonna come into your front or aerial front hook. Now from there, you're gonna get your inside armpit onto the pole, thrusting your hip forward, and then you can come into your figurehead position. So, inside hand at neck height, onto your toes, outside hand nice and high. Hooking your inside knee pit nice and high so that's close to your elbow. And then from here, you're gonna lift your outside leg up. Lift, and then from there, thrust your hip, push your pelvis forward, getting into your inside armpit. From there, outside ankle comes onto the pole, and then pull your inside arm towards you. Hands together, first variation. From there, hand above if you can. If you can, lean back all the way, or lean to your side, second variation. You're gonna cross your outside hand over your inside shoulder and then grab it. There is your third leg variation. To come out, grab the pole with your outside hand nice and high. Reverse it, so grab the pole with your inside hand and then stepping out. Well done. Alrighty, let's try on the other side. Onto your toes, so that a little further away from the pole. Inside hand at neck height. Again, make sure you're on your toes. Outside hand, nice and high. Hooking your inside knee pit onto the pole so that it's high. You're gonna push yourself slightly if you're on a spinning pole. Push, thrust your hip forward. Coming into your armpit so that your outside ankle is on the pole. Pull your arm across, hands together. Leaning back, and then you can cross. To come out, reverse, and stepping down. Well done. So there is your 3 different hand variations of a figurehead. Hands together, hands above your head, or all the way, and then crossing your arm over. Well done. Alrighty, let's go through some tips and common mistakes. Common mistake number 1 is your hand placement. Now, with your hand placement, in the past in our beginner pole trick tutorial series, we have started with either our half bracket grip or forearm grip, but with your outside hand forearm grip. Now, if these were sort of your familiar tricks, then this is gonna be very different because this time around, we have an inside hand forearm. So, remembering that your inside forearm is on the pole, and also remember that when you're in your forearm grip, that you have to make sure that if your right hand is on the pole, your elbow comes onto the left side of the pole, and then you're really pushing into that forearm. Now this is very important. If your right hand is on the pole and your elbow is on the same side of the pole, then you're going to end up sort of pulling yourself into the pole and you won't be able to push away from the pole. So making sure that your forearm grip is in the right position. Now other thing is if you do try it from a half bracket grip, then you're going to end up not being able to come into your figure skating position. The reason why is because if you try with your inside hand on top, that means that you have to re-grip yourself. So you're gonna have to kind of like shuffle your hand. I'll show you what I mean. So let's just say I start here and then I try to pull myself up. I'm gonna have to sort of like bring my outside hand up and then pull myself in. And it's not as a smooth entry than if you try with your outside hand on top this way. Now again, it's not wrong for you to do it from a half bracket grip, but I am all about smooth entry, and I would always prefer not to be shuffling my hand around. And that's the reason why I always am very sort of like, I want you to make sure that you know which hand is on top when you're coming into your climb and not having to shuffle your hand around. So again, inside hand always comes at neck height. So make sure you look at yourself in the mirror. This will really help you so that you don't have to reshuffle your hand. And then elbow comes on. Outside hand very high, so you're gonna keep it straight. Now from there, making sure that you hook your inside knee pit very close to your elbow. Now, if you try to hook your knee a little lower, then you won't be able to pull yourself up towards the pole, and then you're gonna end up with a very low figurehead, and you're gonna also end up sort of scraping your outside foot down on the base of the pole, and you don't want that. So there is your leg positioning. Now, once you're in your leg position or hooking your inside knee pit onto the pole, the next step is to make sure that you thrust your hip and pull yourself into the pole. If you do not pull yourself into the pole, then you're going to end up sitting your bum down, and then you won't be able to hook your inside armpit around the pole. So this is what's gonna happen. So once you come into position, you're going to lift your outside leg up, and then making sure that you glue that inside knee pit where it is. And then from there, you're gonna take your inside elbow off the pole, thrust your hip, and then get into your armpit. And then that way, you'll be able to sort of climb up the pole and then into your figurehead, and then you won't be doing it rather very close down the floor. Now let's go through the transition between that forearm grip and then armpit grip. This is gonna be very crucial and to make your climb and I guess like your figurehead very seamless. So once you come into your forearm grip, once you lift your leg up and thrust your hip past the pole, from here, this is where you transition from your forearm, lift, take that armpit around, and then you're gonna re-grip so that your hand is right next to your neck. So a really good indication of your armpit grip, that was really hard to say, is to make sure that your inside hand is always next to your neck. That way, your armpit will come straight onto it, and then you're able to lock your elbow all the way around and then come into your armpit grip. Once you're there, and then you're thrusting your hip, all you need to do is just extend your arm forward and then cross it towards you. So again, make sure that once you get into your armpit, that you cross your hand, palm facing down to the floor and then towards your chest. And that way you'll get all that grip that you need in your armpit. And your transition will be much smoother as well, and you don't have to sort of reshuffle your body around the pole. Now, speaking of grip, let's talk about the grip points that we need for this particular trick. Now, you're gonna obviously need your armpit grip because this is all very armpit heavy, but from the other parts, you're going to need the back of your knee, also slightly up your legs because you're gonna pretty much coming into like a front hook position. Now, if you haven't watched the front hook tutorial, I do recommend you to watch the front hook tutorial. That will help you a lot with this trick as well. And also your ankle. The ankle is quite neglected part in terms of a grip. And I find a lot of people have dry ankles because I guess the circulation isn't as good in our ankle area. So I usually like to put grip on my ankle as well. So like the bridge of a foot and my ankle, and it'll help you a lot with the grip. Now, if you have like sweaty skin, make sure that you have something drying on your skin. And if you have dry skin, then get something that's a bit more moisturizing on your skin. So I have all the products that I use personally, the link in the description. But if you have dry skin, make sure that you use something moisturizing, and then vice versa. But I have dry hands, so sweaty hands. So I use a drying agent, so a liquid chalk, and then I have dry skin or dry body, so I use something more moisturizing. So if that suits you, or if that's what sounds like what you are, then make sure you can use the grips that I use, link in the description. Now, let's also talk about once you come into the position. So once you hook your knee, you thrust your hip forward, you get your armpit around. Now, once you're there, you wanna always make sure that your outside ankle is on the pole. So we always forget about our outside ankle once you come into position. So making sure that your outside ankle is behind so that you feel the pole on just right here, just on your ankle. So once you come in position, you're here, you thrusted your hip. Now, once you're here, making sure that you press your outside ankle in towards the pole, and then you'll get all the grip that you need. So it'll be very hard if your outside ankle is off the pole. So remember to bring your outside ankle around. Now let's just talk about the different hand positions now. So again, once you come into a position, the first position that we did, you can either have your outside hand on top or inside on top. Honestly, for me, I don't think it makes much of a difference, but I usually have my outside hand on top, and especially if you feel like you don't have that grip, then you can almost use your outside hand to pull your inside hand away from the pole. Pretty smart. You can also do that and make it sort of like an illusion. So I usually use my outside thumb to push into like my wrist, so that it doesn't actually look like I'm grabbing my hand, because once you grab your hand, it'll look like you're pulling and you don't really want that. So you can just use your thumb and then press your wrist into the pole. Now, the second grip is obviously your hand above. This will require a bit more grip in your armpit, so making sure that you thrust your hip forward and then press your armpit into the pole, and then leaning back, and then that'll help you get all that grip you want to. And then obviously the grabbing. Now, with your grabbing, you wanna make sure that you either grab your shoulder, or you can also grab your lat. Either or work. I grab my lat, but they both work. You can just grab your shoulder and then your other shoulder as well. I usually have my outside hand over my shoulder, and then there's your third grip. Now, let's talk about our hand movement and our head movement next. So with our hand movement, this is one part of the figurehead that could sort of make or break and make it look awkward or not. So I see a lot of traffic controller hands. This is what I call it, traffic controller hands. Now, what I mean by traffic controller hands is that unless you are conscious of your hand movement, your hands do just weird things, because you're obviously very conscious about your legs and your armpit, and you're just trying to hold on for dear life. So I totally understand. Your hands do weird things initially. So I might see hands that are like these, or like this, or just all sorts of things. Now, in terms of your hand movement, this is very crucial. You just want to make sure that you're not very rigid with your fingertips and also with your wrist. If you are very rigid with your hands, that becomes very awkward, and that's what I mean by sort of traffic controller hands. So you try being gentle with your elbows and your wrist, And then when you're extending out, just try this from the floor first. You don't have to do this on the pole, especially with this hand. You wanna, if you're using this hand to really pull into it, you're obviously gonna have to extend your elbow, but you just wanna be gentle with your wrist and your fingertips. So I usually always say lopsided ear, sort of fox or corgi, if you used to play those shadow games when you were young. You wanna think about sandwiching your middle finger and your ring finger with your thumb, and then point your pinky and your index finger up. But you wanna make sure that your index finger is slightly above your pinky. And there is your very pretty hands that you can work on. So try sort of like a lot of hand movements initially. So bringing it up and then swapping it over. So gentle with your wrist. So especially with this arm and then like that back arm, just try using your little pose. So pose to the mirror and then try leaning back and then try what works for you. And again, worst case scenario, if you feel like this hand and these hands are not working for you once you get in position, then you can get your hand across. So, or you can just grab your hand. That's the easiest way to do your hand movement. Now let's talk about head movement. With your head movement, rather than just looking forward or like hunching your back or bringing your head forward, well, which I guess in the beginning, I get it, you're trying to hold on to dear life. But rather than that, you just want to pop your head back past the pole. So not in front of the pole, backwards. So when you're looking your head over, if you're finding it really hard to look back, just look over your inside shoulder. This is the easiest thing. So look over that inside shoulder, so towards your armpit, towards the floor, and that will make your head or your figurehead look way prettier. Now, if you do want to do the back arch, then make sure that you bring your head all the way backwards, really arch, and think about bringing your hand up and over. And then there's your two different head variations you can do. So looking over your shoulder or looking back. Now also, let's just talk about descent really quickly, making sure that you don't jump out of it. So making sure that once you're coming out of it, that you reverse what you did. So once you're here, you grab the pole with your outside hand, grab the pole with your inside hand back at neck height, and then stepping out with your outside, and then inside. Or otherwise, you can, if you can step out with both of your legs off at the same time. They both work. So the reason why exit is very crucial is because firstly, I don't want you to get injured coming out of it. And also secondly, if you don't work on your exit, then you're going to have this habit of always jumping out of things. And also you don't really learn and to compartmentalize how to come into the trick and reversing it. Because when you know how to go into it, that means reversing it, you pretty much do what you did, but reverse. So try to really think about your exit, and that way it'll help you a lot in the long run, how to come out of it, and also working on sort of like the steps into the trick, and it'll help you really like work your brain. And those were all the tips and common mistakes I wanted to go through. Alrighty, before I let you go, a little mindset tip for you today. Let's talk about our pole community. So most commonly, when you're learning at home, I think the most, roadblock would be the fact that you might feel like you're training on your own. Now, in order to not feel like you are alone, there are so many different ways to sort of find out maybe what people's mental blocks are, roadblocks are, and finding a community that could help you with achieving your goals or finding through what the roadblocks are. Now, first thing you can obviously reach out is to me on this channel. And there's a lot of obviously other people within the comment section that are gonna find some mental roadblocks or maybe any sort of roadblocks, or just finding a community and finding people that you can train with. So you wanna always make sure that you don't feel like you are by yourself. It's just human nature. We never live on our own. We're always relying and helping other people as well. So there's a lot of also Facebook groups that you can join. I'm also a part of Pole Dancers of Australia because I'm based in Sydney. I also obviously instruct at the studio, so I'm always connected with students. And lastly, you can also find people on social media. So make sure that you follow some people, maybe reach out to them, just talk to them on the comment section, and just remember that you're never on your own. So if you have any questions about anything or any roadblocks that you have, make sure you reach out in the comment section or even message me on Instagram or any of the social media platforms. And we are always here for each other. Thank you so much for joining me in the Figurehead, Hood Ornament, Figure Skater, or Ice Skater trick tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I shall see you in the very next tutorial. Bye! Oh, you're so handsome. You're a handsome boy. And this is the Figurehead, Hood Ornament, Figure Skater, or Ice Skater tutorial. Jeez, that is a mouthful.